I think a lot of people read a lot. They read a lot of books. They take a little action. And so I'm a big proponent on read less, take more action. I'd much rather you do something than just continually get more and more knowledge because we have more knowledge in the history of the world. There's no amount of information that you can't learn. It's just
Yeah.
to actually do something with it.
Hello, and welcome to Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. This podcast is dedicated to chiropractors who are in the seasons of launching and building their practice. Join myself, Dr. Lona, and my co-host, Dr. Bobby, as we have conversations each week as it relates to building the practice of your dreams. And remember, you can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. We're here to lead you on the way.
What's up, team? Welcome back to the Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. And today I've got a special guest with me on the call. It is not Dr. Lona Cook, but it's someone who I'm super excited to be having a conversation with. It's someone, guys, who I've had the great pleasure of knowing in my life personally, I would say upwards of 5 years now. And watching the journey that has been on has been truly remarkable, the multiple stages of it. I remember the first time that we met, it was already doing impressive things. But then watching over the last 4 to 5 years what's happened, ultra inspiring, not just for you guys that are listening today and, not just for us that get to interview him or myself that gets to interview him, but I would say quite frankly, what you've achieved in practice the last few years, Josiah, is an inspiration for chiropractic, which shows you what's possible. Because for a long time, I thought, there's a natural ceiling of what a chiropractic office could do. I never thought if someone had asked me, could a single chiropractic office do 8 figures in revenue a year? Could you crack that magical 8 figures in revenue of $10 million plus a year? My answer would have been no until you and I started chatting more. And if you ask me that question now, I would say the answer is absolutely yes. And I would say if there's someone going to do it first, it would be you. We're talking in a single location. So this next guest, guys, that we've got today, we get the great pleasure of going into the brain of someone who's a genius in chiropractic, someone who's absolutely just a stud when it comes to building his practice and understanding all the systems that it takes to scaling. Probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest practice in chiropractic right now today, revenue-wise, single location. So guys, I'm talking about none other than the amazing Dr. Josiah from Lucro and from Vero Chiropractic. Dr. Josiah, what's going on, my friend? How you doing, bro?
Hey, doing great. Yeah, and it's been a pleasure meeting you. I still need to make it down and battle some kangaroos with you, but it's been a pleasure learning from you, these last 5 years as well. So thank you.
Yeah, bro, you got to come down here and battle some kangaroos, but you got to bring your A game because they'd probably kick your butt. They're pretty violent.
Dude, I've seen some video that those things are muscular. Those guys work out.
Yeah, they are jacked. They don't muck around. For sure. So tell me this, man. People would have heard, those of you guys who haven't heard, I would say right now, Dr. Sai probably has the single biggest single office location in chiropractic, but I'll let him share the story. Why don't you take us through, man? Take us through your journey in chiropractic. So I know you guys launched with a bang, and I know, ever since day one, you guys have just been growing on this amazing steep and amazing curve, which isn't normal in chiropractic. So we'd love to hear your story. Talk to us about your story in chiropractic and how you guys have grown your office. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So for me, I'm going all the way back to undergrad. Really, played football in college, got injured, went to this local chiropractor, and I was getting adjusted. And at that point, I was pre-med. I was about to take the MCAT. Thought I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And the guy's like, you can be a doctor and an entrepreneur. And I literally was like, entrepreneur, what? Like, I don't even know what that word means. Like, my dad still waits tables. My mom delivers newspapers. Like, I grew up very low income, $500 car, was the nicest car I ever had growing up. And so I had no idea what entrepreneur was or business owner. And he kind of painted this picture of, what's possible. And I was really loving the natural holistic approach. My dad was really always into nutrition. And so I was like, man, if I can be a doctor, help people, serve really what I wanted to do, and from a natural perspective, and really figure out what this entrepreneur thing was simultaneously, it really just clicked. And so I decided to go to chiropractic school, with that in mind, but I knew going into chiropractic school, I really wanted to open my own business. And so I was fortunate to have that mindset going into chiropractic school that I knew I needed to learn how to run a business from the beginning of going to chiropractic school. And so when I got into chiropractic school, I quickly learned that they don't teach you many business principles in school. And so I then, really made it my mission that I need to figure out how to run a business these next 3.5 years while I'm getting my chiropractic degree. And so I ended up going to over 50 different chiropractic clinics around the country while I was a student trying to learn, how they do their SOPs, how they do their processes, how they do marketing, how they do sales, how they do finances, operations, adjusting, all those things. And so I was really blessed to learn from lots of different chiropractors, a lot of things to do, maybe even more things not to do. And so along the way, I was just really documenting, everything I learned, asked lots of questions. I always just been very curious, to try and learn, little bits and pieces from everybody. And so that's then what I did. I just tried to combine all those little experiences of those 50 different clinics that I learned while I was in school and opened my own clinic just 4 months after graduating from chiropractic school. And we
So let
already,
me jump in.
yeah.
So let me jump in here because I know this is now when the story starts to go to the next level, but I want to chime in because the mindset behind what you just chatted about, a lot of people can learn from already. So there's two things that I heard you say there, and correct me if I'm right with this. So number one, you realized in school that, you know what, I better go learn. So you went and you mirrored people essentially, right? You went and you looked to see, okay, if I could get into enough offices, I could mirror behaviors. So I could mirror successful behaviors. And then also you could start to learn, all right, what were successful behaviors. That was the first thing I noticed. And then the second thing I heard you say is you documented. Is that something that you do? Like, do you get pen and paper out and write it down on paper? Like, is that something that just is part of your process now, like actually documenting things? Because I hear people say all the time that, when you have thoughts in your mind and you learn things, if they're not written down on a piece of paper, there's no organization around those thoughts. And I've heard of plenty of people that go out and observe offices, but don't actually do anything with it. Don't do anything of substance with it. Is that a bit of practice that you can share straight off the bat there? Do you document in terms of pen and paper? How do you do that?
Yeah, I hear. If you guys there video, I'm holding up. I got pen and paper written in front of me. But every single conversation I have with anybody, I've always been that I can learn. No matter who I talk to, no matter whether it be business, personal relationships, faith, fitness. Anybody you have a conversation with in life, you can get a takeaway to improve in any area of life. So yeah, anytime I have meetings with people, that's something.
Yep.
I don't have a notebook with a pen that I can jot down things, and then not only that, I'm very meticulous on then going back through my notes on a consistent basis and making sure I took action steps based on those notes. And one thing, if you've ever heard any of my presentations, or I would say most of my talks, I talk about don't take notes, write action steps. And anytime you listen to someone or anytime you're learning, whether it be this podcast or any other opportunity you're talking to someone, is what are the actual things that you're going to implement and take action on as a result of what you learned. You don't just want to take notes. Hey, that was a good idea. You're going to go nowhere. And that's just a big differentiator. I didn't really realize that was maybe differentiator for me than other people.
Yep.
Because I think a lot of people read a lot. They read a lot of books. They take a little action. And so I'm a big proponent on read less, take more action. I'd much rather you do something than just continually get more and more knowledge, because we have more knowledge in the history of the world. There's no amount of information that you can't learn. It's just to actually do something with it.
Yeah, I think that in itself is absolute genius. If you were to stop the podcast right now, guys, and take action on what we've discussed in the first 4 minutes, you would change your life. And I couldn't agree with you more, because I see people. Recently, I was talking to an associate of mine. He's like, "Oh man, I made a mission this year to read a book every single week." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what's the purpose of reading a book every single week? I mean, you got 52 books over the course of the year. Is it really about the quantity of books that you read, or is it about the quality of how much you implement and the quantity of how much you implement per book?" Because I can tell you, I probably read less books than him, but the books that I do read, I reread and I take notes and I take action. And if you just implement everything that you can from one book, it can absolutely change your life. So I love that you write things down. I love that you got notes in front of you, and I've got them in front of me as well here. Like literally, I've got my notepad, success leaves clues. I'm exactly the same. It's right here in front of me with a pen, writing things down as I'm learning, as I'm going. So there's something about making a bill and putting it into the universe when you write it down. So come back to the story then. All right, so you're out in practice, first year out, you're launching the door, Vero Chiropractor with you guys that are listening. What happens next, man?
Yeah, so that was one of the big things I learned, I was going to these offices, is that a lot of them did in-person events, screenings, networking, low-cost marketing strategies. Like I said, I didn't come from a background, so I didn't have really any financial backing. I was actually very blessed. My in-laws took out a home equity line of credit on their house to co-sign with my wife to get a business loan. And so was the financing we had. And so we're very particular about, being frugal, with our money, making sure that we're spending dollars wisely. And so, I was like, well, what are all the lowest cost activities, that I could do? My wife and I, Megan, we averaged 5 to 7 meetings a day for the next 4 months. Most of them were at coffee shops, just meeting with local business owners, local community members. We started getting involved in very low cost, screening events. And the first one I ever did was called Sisters Craft Fair. It was like $20. I have a booth at this event, and it was really just grassroots marketing is what we did, collecting business cards and taking notes and following up with emails and thank you cards. And we ended up having a ribbon cutting before we opened, at the largest ribbon cutting in our city's history. And then we ended up scheduling over 400 people that had prepaid for an appointment to come in our office before our first day open.
So talk to me about that, because that's definitely not normal. So you guys scheduled 400 prepaid new patients. Did you do that by simply hitting the ground and like screening and marketing wherever you could, have a foundational member special where it's like, guess what? We're launching in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Right now we've got a foundational member special, which is X amount of dollars, and you're going to get visit number one. You're going to get any X-rays and the explanation of your results. Is that exactly what you did?
Yeah, I mean, we were scheduling, like I said, 4 months out from opening. People were like, "Is that your next available appointment?" They're like, "Can I get it sooner?" I'm like, "No, that's our first available time." They're like, "Oh, wow," A few people actually like drove by because they're like, they scheduled it and they're like, "Oh, I understand why that was your next opening. You're not even open yet." So we just were like, we were just casual, like, "Hey, our next opening is July 10th or 11th, when works best for you?" And, it's February.
Yep. And what about in those early days? Because I know there's the question a lot of people are going to have on their mind. Was it just you and Megan? Was it just you and your wife doing that? Or did you have people that were already working for you? How did you do that in terms of bandwidth and team?
Yeah, no, it was just us. I mean, like I said, literally had graduated the week, prior, walked across the stage, hadn't even gotten my official license, at that point that we started, joining the community events, meeting people, coffee shops. I didn't even have enough money to buy coffee every time. I don't even really drink coffee, but I was, that's just where that was a free spot to meet, network and meet people, and, try to provide value and get to know people. And a lot of those, relationships we still have to this day. A lot of it was us really trying, provide value to them. There wasn't, we tried to go in and say, "Tell me about your business," ask them about what they have, how can we help them, what can we learn? And it was very service oriented, from the beginning.
Yeah, nice. I love it. And so what happens next? You guys obviously start blowing up year one. I mean, I'll let you tell the story, but I'm pretty sure you guys cracked 7 figures in collections. Year two, you're doing multi 7 figures. What happens next in the journey now by applying those principles?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, a couple weeks out, we're like, we had about 300 appointments scheduled at that point. We're like, all right, we need some help, so we hired 2 part-time people, and they both started with us right from the beginning. And by our second month in practice, we were at 400 a week.
And was that just you adjusting, or did you have an associate at that point already? How'd that work?
No, just me. Yeah, me and my wife, and then a couple part-time team members.
Yep.
So we were at 400 a week, and I'm sleeping on the tables. I'm trying to, see everybody, and then after shift, I'm trying to figure out, the marketing, and I'm doing marking all the X-rays and building the care plans and doing the notes, and I'm still, I actually set my schedule up at that point because we found these different consisting farmers markets. I'm going to this farmers market that we pay $5 to have a booth with. I would do that, still every Saturday. I would close my clinic down from noon to 3 so I could still do health talks over lunch. And so I was usually doing a health talk in the morning, 7 to 8 a.m., go do a shift, then have another health talk over lunch. And so in between all those, I'm scheduling them. I'm doing, doing everything. My wife obviously as well. And we had our first son when I was in chiropractic school, so he was about a year, old at the time. And so we did over 1.2 million our first year in practice, and then we did 2 million second year in practice, and then third year in practice was COVID. And so that's when I was, was like, okay, I had some more time. I was been going. At that point, I had a couple associates and was really trying to figure out, what do I do next? How do I get to the next level? And so that's when I joined Remarkable Practice, because I knew there was something that I need to get to the next level. Started coaching with Dr. Pete's, learned about the chiropractic operating system, and helped implement that into my business. And we added some additional protocols into our clinic to really give, because we were out of space. We were, like I said, we were 1,800 square feet. And so then the next year, yeah, we went the year after COVID, 2021, we went to 5.5 million in 1,800 square feet.
So you guys next step. Okay, so I love what I'm hearing here. First of all, I'm just going to trace the lessons learned along this story. Ready? So we did a similar thing. You guys cracked 1.2 million in 1 year. We cracked our first million in about 18 months to 24 months, right? So slightly behind. But the biggest thing that I got out of what you just said is we were doing so many things similar. So I remember those days of, I would do a talk in the morning, then I would adjust in the morning after that. Then I would have a talk at lunchtime, and then I would have a break for an hour, and then I would go and adjust again the afternoon shift. And I remember, there were certain days where I would be speaking 3 times. It's like I would have a morning a speaking gig, then I would go and adjust. I would have a lunchtime speaking gig, I would go and adjust, and into a dinner workshop. So I remember my diaries at the time would have, 3 speaking gigs. I want to get this many new at the first one, this many at the second one, this many at the third one. What I'm hearing you say is you guys just did more and more volume of these things, right? Which is why you exploded, so strongly out of the gates. And then you got to the point 1,800 square feet, and you guys were generating over $5 million annual revenue out of 1,800 square feet. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
All right. So I want you guys to hear what's possible. Okay, guys, 1,800 square feet, which roughly, if you're in Canada, if you're in Australia, it's roughly 150, 160 square meters, $5 million in revenue out of 1,800 square feet. All right. So I absolutely love that. So talk to us then about the journey from 2 to 5 mils. So you said you brought in an operating system, which ultimately means that you had high levels of KPIs, accountability, meeting structures started to take place probably to a high level. What else did you find on that journey was instrumental in just getting you to explode like that?
Yeah, I would say that big shift that you just talked about, which I don't want to breeze by it too quickly, is the shift from systems to structure. And that's what, I talk with a lot of doctors about, is that I think a lot of the organizations within our profession have great systems. You have day one processes, day two processes, you have how to answer the phone, how to do table talk, how to do your adjusting technique, how to do billing, lots of systems. And so we were really, really great with systems. And that's where I learned with a lot of these clinics that I went to is, how to go through a process, how to have documentation and, processes in the office to have good, clean systems. But what I had no idea about until that third year of practice, like I said, was structure and accountability and organizational charts and, who's responsible for what. Because at that point, everything came back to me and Megan. If we didn't get something done, we didn't do something, or even if someone else was supposed to do it, ultimately the responsibility of the failure or success still came back on our shoulders, and people weren't compensated or impacted, no matter really what happened. They were just, they're doing a good job, or they're being judged very subjectively, overall. And so implementing structure and accountability and rhythms of meetings and KPIs and performance reviews, has really helped us understand, where we're at and what was possible. What we thought we were starting to hit capacity at 2 million, and we realized there was way more capacity than we had once we had better rhythms and structure in place. And that was really simultaneously combined, with really increasing the lifetime value, of my patient base. And so, like I said, we didn't have any space, so I couldn't add anything physically into the office, but we added some additional protocols that they could do from home, some supplements and so forth that allowed us to give them higher quality care, get them better results faster without it taking, or utilizing any physical space, because we had nothing.
So when you guys were at your 1,800 square meter space, were you doing primarily adjustments only at that point?
Yep, exactly. That's all we did. A whole location. We never did anything in that location inside the space besides adjustments, exams, and x-rays.
Yep. Gotcha. I love it. That's awesome, man. So to make sure I got this right, and so people are hearing this, guys, exactly what Josiah is saying. As you start building out your team members are not just expenses that you're adding to the P&L sheet. That's an expense that I need to run my practice. It's actually every single team member is a resource, and that means that they're an investment if you position them properly, if you train them properly, and then if you have them accountable to certain KPIs. So I think what I heard you say there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. J, is that every single person in your team, they have certain KPIs, and it's their responsibility to make sure that we are hitting those KPIs. And if we hit those KPIs, then that's them contributing to the organization growing as a whole. And then there's obviously structure in place around bonusing and remuneration around that as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That was something that really realized that you need to have different people that are accountable for things that they actually have control of. At first I thought, well, hey, these people need to be accountable to that because this is what I think their position is. But then when I realized some positions have more ability to impact certain KPIs than others, that was definitely a learning process, for us to really understand, what positions impact what KPIs should actually be a bonus down, which KPIs really drive revenue, right? At the end of the day, Lucro stands for profit, right? Because the goal, of a business, enterprise value, Dr. Prince would want me to say that is the ultimate goal, of a business, but, on a consistent basis, for most clinics, total profitability, not profit margin. You'd much rather have 20% of a watermelon than 50% of a grape. Total profit of the clinic is really the goal. And so how do you have KPIs that drive other people to take the similar actions? And really what we talk about with our team a lot is having an owner's mindset. How can we help them make the same decisions that we would take? And therefore, how can we help them be incentivized to take those same decisions and have the same mindset when they think about when they come at a crossroads and they do need to make a decision if am I going to do this or am I going to do that or what step am I going to take? If they can understand and have properly tied KPIs and performance reviews, then that's going to incentivize them to ideally take that decision, more likely than not.
Yeah, I love that. And, I feel as though that is actually one of the fundamental keys to chiropractic scaling to the next level. I look at offices when they sell, and very often offices sell for a percentage of like total revenue, or sometimes they just close the door and don't sell for anything, right? But you look at an office here in Australia, we see it commonly, might have an office that's doing $500,000 a year. The way they evaluate it, they go, well, there's a few methods, but 35, 40% of goodwill, whatever that is, and the office might sell for like 100K, 250K, like that, right? And so you've got someone's life work there that's selling 200K, and you look at the real business world when businesses sell for multiples, right, of revenue, when they sell for multiples of EBITDA and profit. And I feel as though the key to making that happen in chiropractic is to know your numbers. Because if you're an outside person looking in and you've got an office that you're evaluating that's doing 5 million, 6 million, 2 million, 3 million, but you know clearly what the profit margins are on that, there's systems and there's structure behind how that's done. There's stability around the team, but there's also somebody that can actually go in and run this thing and be drawing profit straight away. Suddenly that changes the game completely because you've got offices that are assets then because they're true businesses. They're not personality dependent. They're true businesses which have structure and therefore they have equity value. And suddenly you're selling offices for multi-seven figures, if not more, depending on the size of the office.
Absolutely. That's a great concept, that you just talked about is that multiplier is because it's not transferable to a new owner. If you don't have structure, if you don't have systems, if you don't have things in place, it can be a smooth handoff. That's the big thing in our profession. A lot of chiropractic clinics are very personality driven on that individual doctor. That individual doctor's not there, the clinic has to close. Or even if you hire another doctor, people only coming for that specific doctor's personality because they don't have the systems and structure and properly trained team members. So many things are falling on the doctor's shoulders. And so most clinic owners are, if you say, hey, in your business right now, who's the head of sales? Who's the head of marketing? Who's the head of finance? Who's the head of operations? Who's the head of IT? Who just makes sure that the office, gets cleaned? It's like you could list off almost every major function within a business, and almost every chiropractor that I talk to raises their hand for 9 out of 10 of those things. If it's not them, then it's their spouse. So it's like, wow, then do you ever think that someone's going to want to buy this business that you're literally holding up, on the weight of the world on your shoulders like Atlas? It's like, there's no reason anyone would want to buy that clinic.
Yep, spot on the mark, man. You nailed it. And like I said, I think that's the way for us to shift and change chiropractic, because if you're suddenly exiting clinics for multiple seven figures and some of the bigger practices probably even 8 figures, that's legacy changing stuff, because that's money that gets left in the profession that ultimately gives us more resources as a profession to actually develop ourselves further. So I love that. But come back to a second to the story. So that's at the end of the story. What happens next? You guys move into a dream phase. You continue to go and scale. Talk to us now about more recent times. What's been happening?
Yeah, so obviously we grew out of that space for, got plateaued the next year after that because we just couldn't get any bigger, and we're able to found a new space. We wanted to build a spot originally, but then we realized the timeline on there. We're like, I just can't wait. And I ended up just driving around my office and found some office buildings that I was like, oh, that looks like a good building. I sent it to my real estate agent, say, hey, call these building owners up and asking how much they want for their buildings. And literally that's what happened. That's how the space that I'm in right now, literally called the owner, said, "Hey, how much do you want for your building? I got a guy that wants to buy it." And so we ended up buying a spot just a few blocks from our current location. And yeah, last year we did just under 7 million in our one location here.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. I remember when you guys found that building and you were in the middle of planning and renovating it and getting plans organized. And so when you moved into that space, suddenly had more space, so you're able to add more services and just continue the growth and trajectory upwards. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Love it. So here's a question I know everyone has on their mind. So you could be listening to this, guys. You're just about to launch your practice, or maybe you've launched your office now. I know we get a lot of people that are in scale season. They've got multiple associates listening to this. So on that journey of 0 to 7 million plus, and I know that's not the plateau point. You guys are continuing to grow. What are some biggest lessons learned, man? What if I was to say now, all right, 3 biggest lessons. Give me your 3 biggest lessons along that journey. What will they have to be? I know that you're a big numbers man. I know that you have calculations around everything. But if you're going to distill it down now and say, all right, here are 3 lessons learned, I'd love to know what they are.
All right, well, this is great. I actually have a whole master class I did on this topic, so I got my top 3 ready to go for you. The one we already hit on, which is structure. I think structure is the number one missing piece in the entire chiropractic profession. I really feel that is, to take it, from a chiropractic business as a hobby that's personality driven, that doesn't run without you, to a sustainable business that can be sold and, transferred to another business owner, or never sold, and your business running without you and you being able to take vacation and grow without you. One of my favorite lines from Robert Kiyosaki, author Rich Dad Poor Dad, he says, "You can't leave your business for 6 months and not be better without you. You don't have a business, you just have a job." And that structure to me is the biggest gap for chiropractors to go from owning a job to owning a business. And so establishing that structure, because structure is the rhythms or consistency around what you do. And you can take the correct actions today, tomorrow, next week, next month, but are you going to do it the following month and the following month and the following month and year over year? Yeah. That to me is what structure does, is it consistently gives you this feedback loop of what's working, what's not working, what are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. How are you continually evaluating what the number one thing is that you need to focus on? And so I actually found remarkable practice, kind of backwards. I first discovered structure. I started studying other professions outside of chiropractic, and I said, man, what's differentiating these other businesses that they can scale their business like you? I thought when I first came out of school, the pinnacle in our profession was $1 million practice. Well, 2 years in, I'm at 2 million, and I look around, I couldn't find many people to model after. I want to keep growing, but I couldn't find many chiropractors to learn from that were ahead of me at that point. And so that's when I studied outside of our industries, and that's what I realized is they have frameworks of consistent feedback based on KPIs and rhythms of what's working, what's not working. In the tech industry, they call it, agile methodology, and they work in what's called 2-week sprints, where every 2 weeks they're constantly evaluating what's working, what's not working, and they're literally willing to alter their entire business model every 2 weeks if that's what the data says is the number one most important thing that they need to focus on in the next 2 weeks, and they'll give it a shot, and they're able to pivot and alter and move steps way, way faster. And so oftentimes I talk to chiropractors that have been going in the wrong direction, but they don't know what direction they're going for years before they finally realize it, make a pivot. And at that point, anything like a GPS, you've driven how far off the wrong direction before you pivot. It's going to take a lot of time to even get back to where you started. So that's my first one, structure.
Gotcha. And when you say structure, just so it's clear for everyone, what you're talking about here is that you have team members that have individual KPIs and scorecards, and they're accountable for different areas of the business, and they report back to somebody. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. You got it.
Cool.
Structural rhythms of feedback. So, these should happen: daily huddles, weekly meetings, monthly meeting to review. It's an extended weekly meeting, quarterly meetings to evaluate your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. And like I said, the proper KPIs for each of the different positions within your organization, and also for the organization as a whole, of what's working, what's not working. And then that feedback loop always gives you the number one focus. That's what I feel as a CEO or as a business owner, the number one job of the CEO should be identifying what is that number one thing that takes the least amount of work, that's going to have the greatest impact on the business, and they need to make sure that the company is always running in that direction. Like I said, you take one wrong turn in your GPS in your car, I mean, it's correcting you within seconds, and we need a similar type of continual feedback loop to our business when we're on course or off, we're on track or off track. Even if you're always on track with your GPS, I'm still looking at it every few seconds, making sure I'm on track, that I'm
Yeah.
still heading in the right direction. It might even just update and say, hey, we found a better route for you. You want to take the better route? And it's like, heck yeah,
Yep.
save 2 minutes on my commute, so that's what
Yep.
structure is to me.
And before you get into number two, I just want to share something with you here. I'm sure you'll find this useful as well. Last year, I was at a mastermind. It was a 2-day high-level mastermind event. So it was 7-figure entrepreneurs breaking through to 8 figures, right? And it was a $25,000 2-day mastermind event. And the first two things that event started with that we probably spent 50% of the time on was dashboard of understanding your statistics. And then number two, this process called sequencing. And sequencing basically is what you've just described there, which means in your business, there's a million things that you could be doing right now to grow it, or maybe even to not grow it. And that doesn't mean you should be doing them all. The true entrepreneurs who scale, they're the ones who learn how to sequence in the right order. So they make decisions. We're going to focus on this first, then we're going to focus on this next, then we're going to focus on this third. And the only way that you can make those decisions is if you have complete full visibility into your statistics, into your metrics, into your data, what's actually going on in your business, because that drives your decision making, that drives the sequence of what action steps you take. Is that what you've experienced?
Got it. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. It's this just continual loop of what's working, what's not working, and always refining the focus of where you should put your attention and your team's attention.
Yep. Yep. I love it. All right. So that's number one, man. Number one lesson learned, structure. All right. Number two. What do we got?
That's number one. Yeah. No, okay. So number two is team. Number two is team. And, you hit on it a little bit earlier, Bobby, but really the initial thought on team is, hey, they cost a lot of money. It's my number one expense on my P&L every single month. It's my payroll. Team members can have lots of headaches. They can be frustrating. They're not black and white. There's a lot of gray with people. And that's all true. But the overall mindset around team needs to shift because team members need to be viewed as assets. I mentioned, Robert Kiyosaki earlier, and if you read anything about his, he talks a lot about, assets versus liabilities. And what the rich people do is they buy assets. What poor people do is they continue to buy liabilities. And so what great clinics do is they continually invest in team members. And I like to say you either need more team members or you need better team members. And so you need to always be reinvesting into your training process to take your current team members to the next level. And you always need to be on the lookout for A players. The difference in an A player and C player is absolutely massive, but the cost might not be that big a difference. For example, you can hire an A player for $20 an hour, or, let's just say a C player costs $16 an hour. So let's just say the difference between an A and a C player is $4 per hour. Over the course of a year, about $8,000. Now, what's the lifetime value of a patient in your clinic? Let's say on the low end, it's $2,000. So this A player only needs to impact 4 more people signing up or staying under care, to be worth it. In a business, the way that we operate with how high touch we are at the front desk, on the phone, reoccurring visits into your clinic on a consistent basis, that's not difficult at all. So the value of an A player is always going to be way higher than they cost. And so this is just a framework or a frame of mind that people really need to have first and foremost. And then you can really go into many, many levels, with team as a whole. And so that's the biggest thing I talk about is just the value of team. We're in a service-based, hands-on, in-person profession. Okay. And so if you really distill that down, there's very few other business models that are anywhere close to us. Most of them, like I said, you're buying a product, whether it be food, whether it be something a package that goes in a bag, or that gets shipped in the mail. No matter how good the service is, no matter how good the waiter is, no matter how good the customer service rep is, you're going to grade the quality of the food. You're going to grade the quality of the widget, of the product, of the clothes that you get, of the cup that you get, whatever the products are. So the product value, is way more important. Where we have what I know every chiropractor would consider and be on the same page, the greatest healthcare product in the world. right? So there's no doubt about the quality of our product, right? We have the greatest healthcare product in the world, right? And so, but it's very hands-on, right? So how you interact with somebody, on a visit-to-visit basis, you're only as good as your last adjustment. You're only as good as your last interaction with that patient, whether it be a front desk person not smiling at the front desk or not giving you a firm handshake or any little thing. The value, like I said, brick and mortar, service-based, hands-on profession, the value of team members to our business model of chiropractic is dramatically greater than the value of employees to almost every other business model. And so once you really wrap your head around that, you realize if Chick-fil-A and Target, I don't know what you got in Australia and stuff like that, for high, for a little bit higher level competition for hiring people, if they're paying more than you're paying, then don't be surprised that you're not getting great candidates to apply, hire, or stay on your team. And so that's the big thing.
Yeah.
You got to find those places that are hiring in here, and you have to be a higher level because the quality that you need and the value of a team member in our style of business is substantially greater than all those other businesses. So if they're willing to pay that, you need to be willing to pay more.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you brought that up because you talked there about the experience. And even though we've got the greatest healthcare product in the world, we all know that packaging and framing is key to things. Okay. So you look at a company that does this amazingly, Apple. Everyone knows that, cool, Apple makes great products, but the way they package and frame the products, like when you purchase the product, that's half the experience, right? The package that's going to come in, the feel of it, the texture of it. So the way that something is packaged and framed and presented makes an impact in the perceived value of that product. Let me give you an example of this. Cigarettes here in Australia, I believe they're still doing this. They went through this period, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, where they had to remove all labeling on the cigarette. The only thing that could be in a cigarette packet was a photo of what are the consequences of smoking cigarettes, because it was an initiative to drive down the amount of people that were smoking cigarettes, because that shows you that packaging is important. Compared to back in the day, where cigarettes used to be packaged, Marlboros would have this cool red and white to them. They'd look sweet, right? Part of the factor of smoking was the cool factor of holding the carton itself. So you have a great product, but if it's not delivered, if it's not packaged properly, communicated well, if the experience isn't continually done well, that's going to impact your experience. That's going to impact your ability to grow the office. Correct?
Exactly.
Yep. Love it. I also love the fact that, human resources, I look at humans as resources, which means every single human has a nervous system. They have a brain, and a nervous system means, guys, that you can adapt that person, you can expand that person, you can evolve that person through training, through influence. So you've got a version of somebody who maybe has a lot of potential, but you can actually take them higher levels of potential by training and investing into them.
Absolutely.
Yep. Cool. So lesson number 2, my friend, is the importance of team, getting the right people on the team, investing in them, training in them, leveling them up when it comes to skill sets, making sure they're continuing to buy into the vision, stay motivated, and in love with exactly what you guys do inside the office. Is that right?
You got it. Yeah. We have what we call an employee maturity model. So every team member, when they first come in, we have a whole vision track laid out for them of here's where you first start. These are your initial, responsibilities that you need to train on and test out of and prove proficiency in, and KPIs that are going to be tracked, in that initial role. Once you prove proficiency and hit certain benchmarks, from time with the clinic as well as, certain levels with those KPIs, then and performance reviews with which is alignment with our core values, then you can be promoted to the next tier within that role. And that next tier has higher level KPIs that they need to hit, and they have new areas that they're going to train on, test out of, and be responsible for in the clinic. And then once they have hit certain benchmarks and performance reviews, then they go to the next level. So every position within our clinic has 4 levels that they can advance through, which increase their base pay as well as increased in commission opportunities and growth within our organization, because you need your clinic to be an opportunity vehicle for everyone that comes and works for your clinic. So you have your vision of what you want your business to provide for you. And so you need to have very clear articulation of what the business provides for your employees as well.
So get this, I heard this actually from one of my mentors, and I think it's absolutely genius, that if you want to hang on to A players long term and continue to make sure they're A players, you need to have a vision that's big enough and grand enough that within your vision, you can contain the vision of all your team members. Because just like how you have your own individual desires for things that you want in your life that are aligned to your core values. Like if I asked you now, there'd be certain desires that you'd have in your life, whether that's around the food that you're eating, the clothes that you're wearing, the vacations that you're having, the house that you're living in, the cars you're driving. Everyone's a bit different. It will represent your core values. Guess what? Every single one of your team members has their own unique set of desires and wants and needs. So if you can, through your vision and through the vehicle of your business, make the vision so big and the vehicle so strong that within that, it can contain the vision of all your individual team members, then you'll get people that will never leave you. And I love that you just brought that up because you have in there a progression plan. So it's not like, oh, you're a check-in CA and you make $18 an hour and you'll only ever make $18 an hour. But we expect you right now to be serving 800 people a week. And soon we're going to expect you to be serving 1,000 a week, but you'll get your same $18 an hour. That's not motivating, inspiring for anyone. And expecting someone to rock up and even if they are a player, continue to stay inspired. If you have that kind of model, I think it's going to be very hard pressed. So I love that you have progression plans and people can actually get all their desires met within your business. And I love that you have your employee maturation model where you look at like, all right, I'm sure you have a sheet of paper where you work out what are their goals? What are their immediate goals? What are their more medium to long-term life goals? And if you can, through the vehicle of your practice, help them see how they can achieve all their goals, then they're going to stick with you for years.
No, it's good. Yeah, you're exactly right. They got to achieve their goals and they got to have their vision, their purpose. How can we help them achieve those goals utilizing our company as the vehicle to accomplish that?
Yep. Love it. That's awesome. All right, man. So lesson number 2 is team, the importance of team, nurturing and pouring into them. And I love that you guys have a model they can progress with inside of your business. Number 3, what's the third thing? Third is lesson learned.
Yeah, so I know we talked a little bit about KPIs already as a part of structure, but I really, like I said, structure to me is more of the meeting rhythms and loop and accountability is really the structural piece. But inside of that is the third piece, which is the data. I mean, data is a number 3, and that is huge and it's very difficult in our profession because of our health records programs, in software that we have in our profession. Sometimes that can be very difficult to get the data to actually know what to do. Lots of chiropractors, right? Very hands-on type of people that make just a lot of decisions, with their gut, and so data, gives us the black and white of what's working, what's not working. So I like to segment data really into 3 different categories of where you get your data from. And so the first category that most people think of is what I was just alluding to is your EHR data, right? And that's where you're going to get your show up rates, sign up rates, a lot of the main KPIs that people think of when they think of KPIs is you're going to get most of that from your EHR, right? Then you have what I consider marketing data. And marketing data, is you might have a CRM, very popular one in our profession is Go High Level, where how much you're spending on marketing, how many leads you have, what's your customer acquisition cost, marketing data. And then the third one, which I think is by far the most underutilized, but the most important data piece is financial data. And so financial data is, I think the missing data piece in our profession because most people utilize a bookkeeper really for the only purpose of filing taxes. Bookkeeping is typically done months behind. Even if it's done on a monthly basis, doctors that I talk to that get their P&L say, well, what am I looking at? What's the right margin? What's the right percentage? Should I spend more on team, less on marketing, my overhead where it should be? And so when I study those other professions, like I talked about earlier, one of the key fundamental things that I found that they did was they utilized their financial data as the very first thing they looked at. They said, what was our revenue? What was our profit? What was our margin? How much did we spend on team? How much did we spend on marketing? And that was their first lens that they looked in before they dove deeper into EHR data or before they dove deeper into marketing data or into team member data, right? The first thing you do is you look at the overall buckets of revenue, profitability. How much did you spend on your team? How much did you spend on marketing? How much did you spend on overhead? These big buckets.
Yep.
And so that's what's fundamental in my understanding, in growth process was I realized, okay, I need to know what is the right percentage of my revenue that should be allocated to team members, to marketing, to overhead. And then if it's too high or too low, then I can drill down deeper in and figure out ROI and show up rates and lifetime value and all these other fundamental KPIs. But you got to go through this first overall framework of financial data. And so that's really, like I said, those are the three pieces: EHR data, marketing data, financial data. But it really starts with financial data, and that's going to help you make your decisions. Do I need to hire more team members? Am I overstaffed? Am I not getting the efficiency of my team members? That's where one of my most important stats that I recommend doctors track what's called percentage of schedule filled. And that's, is kind of a subset of that to understand how much of your schedule is being filled. Do I need more team members? Do I need to, increase spend on marketing? Do I need to hire? Am I bottlenecked with adjustments, or am I bottlenecked, with other appointment types that I have? And so, again, just starting with the financial data and filtering down is massively important.
So I've got two questions on you for you that I know that docs are going to ask on this. One is probably a pretty simple one, maybe a bit of an easier one to answer. How often are you checking that data inside of your business? Are you checking that on a weekly cadence? You're checking it on a monthly cadence? Are you doing elements of both? How often are you checking the data? What do you recommend?
Absolutely. So the financial data piece is a monthly basis, monthly with the P&L, looking at overall revenue spend, overall profitability, percentage of spend on team, marketing, overhead, those major areas, overall spend. And then every single week, we're drilling down into those subsections of the data, the smaller, data pieces, the KPIs that are then obviously driving up. So every month, it's kind of a big vision over, okay, what do we need to focus on the next month? Okay, then drill down. And then in those meetings, part of structure, right, then you're drilling down into, okay, what specific steps do we need to take to improve show up rate? What specific steps do we need to take to improve sign-up rate or retention rate, or what churn rate, or any of those KPIs that you were talking about?
Yeah, I love that. And then question number two, which goes hand in hand with that, is I know a lot of docs have questions around marketing. Some people are like, well, okay, maybe I'll do referral only marketing. You're missing the boat there, buddy, because you can compound your referral marketing if you actually invest in marketing as well. I know that both of our practices, we invest pretty heavily into marketing. So you guys have a tool, I believe, that shows us like, all right, well, here's how much you should invest in marketing. Here's how much you should invest, in team. Is that right? That's my question. Do you have a tool that guides us about like, what are the different levels that you should be investing in?
Exactly. We created for the chiropractic profession what we call the perfect P&L. So that really gives you a guideline based on your monthly income or revenue of your clinic. How much should you be allocating to each of those areas? And then to drill down to the next level, the most basic equation, Bobby, that everyone should be able to calculate immediately right after I say this, that, if you don't know you're this, then we got other problems. And in Lucro or Marco Practice, we can help you with these types of things. But the biggest, most fundamental thing from a marketing perspective is, what is your break-even ROI that you need? And the easiest way to calculate is just do 100 divided by your profit margin. So profit margin is 40%, 100 divided by 40, 2.5, 33% profit margin, 100 divided by 33 is 3. What would you say, Bobby, of the clinics or doctors that you talk to? What would you say, do you feel like is the average profit margin?
I would say that most of them don't even know. That's the first thing. The ones that we work with know, but in the beginning when they come to us, they don't even know. So they're like, oh, profit margin. I would say probably in the beginning before they clean things up, it was somewhere between 10 to 20, maybe 25%.
Yeah. So let's just say it's on the low end, 10%. I think that is pretty low. We don't see a lot of clinics that low, but let's just say it is 100 divided by 10 would be 10. 25, you said, 100 divided by 25 is 4. So that's your minimum that you need to break even from a marketing standpoint. So if you have a 25% profit margin, you need a 4x. You spend $1,000 on marketing, you need to generate $4,000 in revenue to be a break even point in that. And Bobby, I know we've had these conversations. Here's the crazy thing: if you understand your cost per lead, a lot of doctors are charging for the initial consultation oftentimes more than the cost per lead. And so that's something that, you can have a flywheel from a marketing perspective. I know me and you nerd out about this type of stuff. Let's just say your, cost, per, day one, appointment scheduled is $50 and you charge $60, for initial consultation, whatever your special is, then you're already making money on the front end, but, then it's in the cost of acquiring that person. So, you can really get into it, but at the most fundamental level, 100 divided by your profit margin, you got to know that. If you don't know your profit margin, like I said, Lucro can help you with that. You got to know that. That's the most fundamental stat there is
Yeah, I love that. And if you're hearing what we're talking about now and you're like head is spinning, guys, it means you got to get in touch with Lucro because you need to know this stuff. This is how you grow your business. What Josiah is alluding to there is called a CAC payback period, right? You've got or a new patient acquisition payback period. How much does it cost you to get somebody? If it costs you $50 to get somebody and you're charging $70 in your initial consult, that means your CAC payback period is 1 day. So you're in negative cash flow for 1 day by the time that person comes in. Or if you collect the money at the screening, you're not in negative cash flow at all, which means you've made the money back on the person straight at the screening. And there's a rule in business that if you can get your CAC payback period under 10 days, you should be doubling your marketing budget until that breaks. So it shows you the scope of what's possible from a marketing front. I know that you guys recommend, especially you have a range of recommendation from marketing. I think it's from like 8 up to 12, 13% that you spend on marketing. Is that right, Josiah?
Yeah, we recommend even up to 20% once you get really higher, up in the hundreds of thousands per month.
Yeah, wow. And is that, just to clarify, is that I should be spending whatever percent, and I know you guys are going to give a tool for anyone who wants this, so you guys can get this from Josiah. But is that 20% of my goal revenue, or is that 20% of my current revenue, or 10% of my goal revenue, or 10% of my current revenue?
Yeah, so that's a great question. If you're looking to grow, you want to do it of your goal. If you're looking to get to the next level, you really want to do it of your goal. If you're just doing it of your current level, that's going to help you stay at your current level. So
Yeah.
that's a great way. That's a great tweak. That a great add-in for sure.
Yeah. Yep. I love that because that's a mindset thing about if you want to grow, guys, make it of the goal revenue. I used to sit there and go, oh, we're doing really well, 10, 12, 13% of our current revenue. And I was like, oh, man, make it on your goal revenue. That's aggressive growth. Put that to ChatGPT and look at what ChatGPT sends you. ChatGPT will give you some good advice if you know what to ask it. And I remember I asked it that and it was like, wow, that's really aggressive growth standard. That's fantastic. That's exactly what you should be doing to grow and expand your business, right? So I love it. All right, my man. I know you and I could talk for hours, and we do. We catch up every other week. Any final thoughts? Someone's listening to this, right? I want to grow my practice. Any final thoughts, man? What could you send my way?
Yeah, I mean, we've been trying to create lots of resources around everything that I talked about, collaborating with the Remarkable Practice and some other great organizations in the profession. If you just go to morelucro.com, we have a link to what we call the vault. And so I've just been very transparent about all the different things that we've done to scale our clinic, to $7 million a year and all the different ways that you need to evaluate. But really at the fundamental core, like I said, to have structural rhythms, you need to have the proper mindset around team, and you need to have the right feedback loop of the data that gives you the insights of what specific actions that you should take. Once you have those actions, again, goes back to structure, and then you have this rhythm of continually taking those actions, and then you have the team members to help you take those actions. And it's just this continual flywheel, like I said, of structural rhythms, the proper data, and the team members to implement the actions. And that, to me, that's what scaling is. It's just this continual feedback loop of what's working, what's not working, investing the time into the proper things, and it's just going to keep growing. And so many people that I feel that hit bottlenecks, or they're frustrated with where they're at, they want to get to the next level, they don't have those core fundamentals of a successful business in place.
Yep, spot on. And talk to us. So Lucro will do that for us. It'll help us with understanding our stats. Who should reach out to Lucro? Who should reach out to you guys?
You don't want to be cliche and just say everyone, but let me just walk through, the value at each of those stages. So let's say you're in the launch stage and you're about to open up your clinic. Immediately after you open, funds are tight. You need to have them and make the best financial decisions possible every single month of where you should allocate your resources to get to the next level and scale and not hit bottlenecks. So doctors right out of the gate, first few years in practice, huge value, right? Then you're jumping in the next stage where you're building and you're trying to get to the next level. And you're trying to get an associate. You need feedback, on what team members are most important. How should you invest most effectively into your marketing? You're starting to implement some structural processes, right? Then you want to start scaling. You're bringing on more team members, right? And you have an associate, and you're investing more, and you're getting to the next level, and you're going over $1 million, clinic, $2 million clinic, and you're trying to get to the next level. Even more important for you to be able to run your clinic without you. You want your business to be operating and growing and scaling, whether you're in the office or sitting on a beach, being able to look at that data and have team members start taking responsibility and accountability for actions, or if you want to exit your clinic, you want to get top dollar for the valuation of your clinic. And a huge part of that is having clean financial data of what's working, what's not working, implementing processes and structural rhythms where the clinic isn't reliant on you. And so with Lucro, we do your bookkeeping. You have a dedicated team member that every single week that does your books. And then every month you have your report that says, hey, based on your numbers, these are chiropractic specific action steps that you should take to get to the next level. From me individually growing my clinic to 7 million, my partner Adam, who was the CFO for $1 billion company, we give you key insights to then get to the next level. And then we collaborate with a remarkable practice and other great organizations in our profession to say, okay, what do I do? If I need to focus more on my team, I need to reduce overheads, I need to invest more in marketing, what are the exact action steps that should be taken to get to that next level? And so what really gets me excited about Lucro overall is that we're compiling what are the industry insights for the entire chiropractic profession. There's no other organization that's going to have the data insights, what we do of how clinics are being ran, right? Anything else is being submitted subjectively, by a doctor on a survey. This is the black and white data in the profession of what organizations are being used, what marketing companies, what coaching groups, what business model is the best way to be operated, and how do you do that? What are the right margins? How much do you spend on all the different areas of your practice? We have all that data for the profession. And so that's really my ultimate goal for Lucro, is to advance the profession, because I always tell people it's Jesus and chiropractors. Top people that are called miracle workers in the history of the world is Jesus and chiropractors. There's nobody else that's more consistently called a chiropractor. They called a miracle worker than a chiropractor in any community around the world, right? I mean, I was just talking to a person who literally calls their chiropractor Dr. Magic. That's literally what they renamed their chiropractor, is Dr. Magic, because of, what they do just doesn't seem possible. There's nobody else that, people talk about any other profession the way they talk about chiropractic profession. So if that is really true, which I believe that Bobby does, most chiropractors listening, we have the greatest healthcare product in the world. Then the key separating fact, if we have the greatest product, then how do we run the best business to get that product and have a bigger impact on our community, on our countries, on our world? And so that's really Lucro's, vision and mission, is to make that impact, and, working with a remarkable practice to create bigger impact, for the entire world through chiropractic.
Yep, I love it, bro. And I love that you guys, you look at the data, you put, we call it data in Australia, so, data. You look at the data, all right, and you put it together and you send a monthly report to the office, so the office then can make more intelligent decisions and action steps moving forward. And then you can talk to your coaches, your mastermind groups in the back of that. Like, that's absolutely golden. So I love it. So if you guys are going to leave all the details in the show notes, guys, or reach out to Dr. Josiah directly. Was it morelucro.com?
You got it.
Nice and easy. Doesn't get
Lucro means profit, more profit. That's what you want. That's what we help you with. Thanks for having me on, Bobby.
I love it. Thanks for being on, bro. It is awesome. Guys, if you have any questions from today, you just reach out to myself or Dr. Josiah, or go ahead and add him on his socials, right? So Josiah.Fitzsimmons at Instagram. You find him on Instagram, or you find him on social media and Facebook as well, Josiah.
You got it. Yep.
Cool. Reach out direct, guys. Have a conversation. But I know Lucro will be an absolute game changer for you. Thank you so much, man. I learned a ton. I know that everyone has learned a ton. And guys, it shows you what's possible. $7 million a year, and on the pathway to an 8-figure practice. So get it done.
Hey, Remarkables, let me ask you, can you imagine generating more than 600 qualified new patient leads per month? How about seeing 183 new patients in 1 month? Imagine your practice generating more than $100,000 a week in collections, on track to doing over $5 million this year. Sound impossible? Well, those are the real results that TRP's own Dr. Bobby Ilyajozovic is enjoying as we speak. Those are his July numbers, and August is going to be even better. Coach Bobby has been a new patient generation machine for nearly 10 years. I know, because I've been coaching him since day one, but now he is going totally bionic. He has cracked the code on new patient generation, and he is ready to share it all with you guys. Do you want to get in on this? Join us for the annual Remarkable Attraction Marketing Immersion, October 10th and 11th in Phoenix, Arizona, and October 24th and 25th in Adelaide, Australia. Coach Bobby will be walking you and your team through every step of his remarkable lead machine system. Click the link in the show notes below and register your team now. But Dr. Bobby's sessions are only one of the reasons that you and your team need to be at the Remarkable Attraction Immersion. Let me ask you, Have you started using AI to drive new patients into your practice yet? There's a new era in marketing that's powered by AI, and it's creating a surge of new patients for docs that know how to leverage it. Don't miss this wave. Our team of experts will show you exactly how the most successful marketers are using AI to generate record numbers of new patient leads in internal marketing, external marketing, and of course, digital marketing. Have you developed a fully leveraged marketing machine where you'll have total confidence that you'll predictably smash your goals month after month after month? Stop leaving tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table due to lackluster internal new patient referrals. Stop wasting time and spinning your wheels trying to figure out how to get butts in seats for your outside speaking events. Stop throwing good money after bad on digital marketing that's just not working. Doc, you should be seeing a 5 times to 10 times ROI on your marketing dollars. Our clients are crushing this. This weekend seminar will feature a 3-track format focusing on optimizing your internal, external, and digital lead generation. 9 breakout sessions in total, with a special emphasis on best practices leveraging AI for all of them. Bring your team. Everyone in your practice is a marketer. Let us inspire and equip them to help you fill your schedule book with more qualified new patients. Join us for the annual Remarkable Attraction Marketing Immersion, October 10th and 11th in Phoenix, Arizona, and October 24th and 25th in Adelaide, Australia. Click the link in the show notes here or go to the remarkablepractice.com events page and register your team today.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, please click the links in the show notes to schedule a call.